guy with the guitar who sings about robots and death.
Hello, mate. You all right?
Hey, Matt. How are you? How you been?
All right. So we got Chris Parkins from London Prog Gigs group, and now you're a promoter, fully fledged promoter now, aren't you, mate?
I wouldn't say fully fledged, Matt. I suppose I might facilitate the occasional prog gig.
You seem to be putting him on as much as anyone is at the moment.
No, that is not true. Do you know how many gigs there are in London in September that are prog related? Not including pop, not including metal, not including rap, just prog related gigs, just London, just September.
Well, don't know. 50?
67.
No.
I have a list on the London Prog Gigs group and webpage and page. 67 gigs I've listed of being prog related, just September.
It seems like he's coming back now, isn't it? So the last time we spoke, we talked about when will gigs return, and it's more of a case of now gigs are back. How are we coping with it, isn't it?
That absolutely is the case.
So I've noticed. So post Bloodstock, which is I think is a fantastic festival. There's a lot of people who got COVID post that. So 500 people out of 10,000 people attended. The only reason I know is because our mate, he plays in Orange Goblin, Harry, got COVID from it, and thankfully he seems to be okay. But he, we know him from Elves of Mars, and we've played gigs with him in the past. Really nice guy, and but it seems to be quite a few people got there, and I think Bloodstock did a very good job by the sound of it. But it's very hard to make these things, so that nobody gets COVID if they're meeting up in big groups, isn't it? So. I know as a performer myself, I'd be absolutely gutted if someone came to one of our shows and got sick after being at the gig. That would make me really sad and feel really bad about it. So that's a concern for me. In terms of you've got gigs coming up. You got gigs in September, is that right, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. We've got a gig coming up called The Sunday in September on September the 19th.
And how are you feeling about that, mate?
Well, just dialing back just a second. I mean, it is over a year since we last had our YouTube chat. Amazing. It doesn't seem like a year since we last chatted. But 2020 just doesn't count in anybody's memory. I think the time just sort of went by.
It's been so weird, hasn't it?
And at that time, I think pretty much everything that I said on that YouTube chat turned out to be wrong. So, all of my predictions and everything. One thing I was predicting that when we were finally able to go back to gigs, because we were in full lockdown at that time.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
My thought was people would be itching to go to them. Somehow in my mind, I had put together the idea that when we can go back to gigs, COVID will have finished.
Yeah.
And that, with the benefit of hindsight, or possibly I should have had better foresight, but that was obviously never going to be the case. And I think we mentioned before, COVID is going to be with us for many years, if not forever. So to my slight bemusement, gigs came back, but people were reticent to go and see them. And that's changing as we go along. It really, really is. As you say, Bloodstock, there were some people there, but I'm just looking at the paper today, falling cases. Mass events such as England and India at Lord's did not cause big outbreaks. So, for every bit of good news you might read in the paper, there's a bit of bad news. It depends whether you're optimistic or, glass half empty sort of person. There are a new day happened last week, prog festival in Kent and stuff. A lot of people went to that outdoor festival, older people.
Older crowd. I think there's three things about New Day. It's an outdoor festival. We've played there twice, and it's a lovely day. And it is quite socially distanced anyway. It's big gaps in the crowd. It's not like a metal gig where everyone's crammed together. I think that's probably okay. I think I would imagine there's not going to be a lot of repercussions there, because virtually everybody in the audience would have been double jabbed, wouldn't they? Because they're older people, unless they've chosen not to. And
That's very much the case. Prog for Pert, which happened, a charity fundraising prog gig a couple of weeks ago in Abingdon, was the first proper prog. I'm not talking about the prog metal. I'm talking about the sort of traditional prog sort of genre.
Summer's Endy sort of, yeah.
Yeah, that very much sort of thing. Now, that was an indoor festival, 2-day festival. Nobody indoors felt the need to wear masks or socially distance, but then again, it wasn't heaving. And Mark Cunningham, the promoter, had put in quite hefty COVID prevention measures.
So what did you have to show to go into there, Chris?
He was very tight on showing a recent negative lateral flow test.
I think that's the thing. I think one of the things, if you can show you need to show like a recent lateral flow. If you're double jabbed, you've had a recent lateral flow. That's probably the best it's going to get in terms of, prevention. I know at Bloodstock they asked for people to be double jabbed, but they weren't confirming a lateral flow. I think that's the lateral flow is the big deal, isn't it, mate?
Well, not everybody can have vaccinations. You need to make exceptions.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's people have medical reasons they can't do it. Yeah, I'm not being
precisely, absolutely right, and we understand that. But there should be no reason why people aren't willing to take a bloody lateral flow test. Whether you make it compulsory on entry, I mean, we've got coming up this weekend, with 1st of September when we're recording this, is the HRH Prog, which takes place at the Shepherd's Bush Odeon and at the O2 venue in Sheffield. And this is the first big test, I think, at least for the sort of prog again, dad prog.
Yeah. I mean, once again, we've played HRH Prog twice and we're playing it next year. And it's a big do. And the crowds are very, I've been to the Shepherd's Bush gig and it's very, very crammed there, very busy. It's a lovely thing. Yeah, I mean, are you going, Chris?
Absolutely. This is a big test for a lot of people because, as I say, Prog for Pert, yes, felt fine. I've been to the Jazz Cafe. I've been to Ronnie Scott's, seeing seated gigs, nice air-conditioned systems, etc. So I've been to quite a few gigs, but I have yet to go to would we go to a small basement pub gig, metal gig? I would probably still think twice about that. As I say, the Shepherd's Bush HRH coming up, and they are being quite hefty on their entry requirements.
What's the entry requirements for HRH, Chris?
Yeah, they need you to, they're accepting evidence of a double vax. Yeah, which is fair enough. You just need to show you've been double vaccinated. You don't need to show a lateral flow as well.
You need to show a lateral flow as well.
You don't need to show it. So they will accept anybody who can prove double vaccination, at least with the second jab at least 3 weeks ago, or a lateral flow test taken 24 hours before. And if you get there without any of that, they do give you the option of taking a lateral flow test on site. So they're being that's the right percent. I mean, I wouldn't want to do a gig if people weren't having lateral flows or before they went in, really. I mean, that's exactly certainly not at this sort of level. Whereas you say there's probably going to be 2,000 people at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. I don't know how many at Sheffield, but
about that. I mean, 2,000 capacity for Shepherd's Bush Empire, I think. So, yeah. I mean, the thing is. Like the gigs the small shows we've done in like small venues like the Black Heart or the Hope and Anchor or the that sort of thing. I mean, they're rammed, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're the ones I'd worry about, to be honest.
Well, I'm sure they're still going on, Matt. I'm sure they're going on every night of the week. I've not been personally back to the Black Heart since lockdown. Good for the Black Heart, you mentioned them. They stayed open all the way through COVID under whatever regulations they could do. They put tables and chairs in. I think they reduced their capacity to about 30 people so that they could keep gigs and venues and bands going. So all praise to them. But now they're back to standing. It's back to being rammed and... Are you going to go, well, that depends. I mean, I'm sure you agree. There's an overall feeling in the country that people are starting to accept that COVID. It's
talking some of it's about mitigating risk rather than accepting what level of risk we'll cope with, basically.
I think also people are starting to feel that they are less scared of it. And it's a thing that probably, I mean, a lot of people just want to get it and have it over and done with. Now, if you get it and you have a serious reaction to it, then obviously that's bad, and you don't want to give it to any of your family that are vulnerable. But for the overwhelming majority of people, particularly the under 35s or so, and I know there are exceptions, but I think now people have gone, yeah, okay, we've got the vaccination, we've got this, we've got that, let's go on with life. And as I say, looking at the gigs that are happening, 67 in September alone, and you put a question on your Facebook group, the Fierce Army group, as to whether people were willing to go back to gigs or not. And quite a lot of the responders were negative or, sort of concerned.
Yeah.
But that was a few weeks ago.
It's ever changing, isn't it? Yeah,
Paul Brunson on one of the Prog Explorations, another Facebook group, asked the same question just yesterday. Loads and loads of replies. 90% positive people listing the gigs they're going to be going to. One or two said, no, I'm not happy, maybe 2022, something like that. But there's a massive change in the last few weeks. Now, whether, if there's an epsilon variant or something, then all the bets are off, obviously. But other than that, no, I'm definite. And as I say, bearing in mind how right I was last time on these things, on my predictions, but it does seem to me that subject to major new COVID news, gigs are back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a gradual shift in people's attitude, I suppose, isn't it? That I'm just always concerned about the safety of the people who come to our shows. I want people to be safe, and that's the primary concern.
Of course you do. But people probably, last time I saw at the Hope and Anchor, was that 90 people or something? Pretty well crammed in the basement.
I can't remember the capacity. It's not. It's the smallest venue. 100. I can't remember. But
Back Art's 150, so it must be less than that.
Back Art's 160. Not sure.
It doesn't matter the exact number. What I'm saying is,
probably about not. I can't remember what the capacity is, because we use it as basically, if we're going to go off and do some festivals and stuff, we use it as basically an open rehearsal. So it's a really good place for us to play and invite a load of our mates and have a laugh and do it. And we always have a good time when we play there. But
I reckon you could probably look at stage and name most of the audience.
Exactly. That's completely the idea of it. To have a meet up with our people. The people in the Facebook group, and totally. Whereas if you play in the Lexington, the Black Art, you get if we're doing the Hope and Anchor, it'll sell out in the morning. If we're doing the Black Art, it sells out in a day. And it's like, because it's different people, it's different. You have a few extra, the super loyal people are in the Hope and Anchor, and then there's a slightly wider audience. But that's the kind of venues we play, and they're the ones that worry me, because they're the ones where it's tight, isn't it? But
my question is this: how many people do you think go and see you play and maybe catch the flu or a cold?
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't go out of the house if you thought about it, would you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and yes, I hear you, and I respect the fact that you wouldn't want to give anybody COVID. I agree with that, but you wouldn't want to give anybody the flu or something like that.
Especially if anyone's vulnerable for the flu, they can be ill anyway, can't they? So
precisely, you can't do that forever. Sooner or later, you've got to accept that there are diseases out there, and and it's not the killer disease that it was. It is a killer disease, but it's not the level of killer disease that it was a year ago. So
post-vaccine,
you have to come out your shell, mate. When you're rehearsing, when you're getting back together, when's your next gig?
Next rehearsal's next week. So we're going to make a new album. We've got gigs booked for April next year. So we've got HRH Prog in Sheffield. We've got the Netherlands for that Prog. What's it called? The Prognosis.
Oh yeah.
Prognosis with Long Distance Calling, all those sort of prog metal bands, and Focus and that. And then we're supporting Evil Blizzard at the Islington Academy.
The Underworld, is it?
No, the other one, the Islington not Assembly Halls, Islington Academy, O2 Academy.
Oh, okay.
So I mean,
I think I've had a ticket for that. It's been postponed about 3 times, hasn't it? That was definitely on the
really know. I mean, we've worked it out. So we've got 3 gigs in April. Hopefully they'll go ahead and we can do those. And I want to get back to it. I've really missed it. I I know I'm like at shows. I want to go and hug people. I want to say, all right, mate, good to see you. You know what I mean? I love playing. I love the community aspect of it as well. And you're right, I think the double jab is definitely making things a lot safer. I
think also people have realised, sorry to talk over you, but I've also realised that since it became apparent the transmission method of COVID, and it wasn't all to do with surfaces and stuff, I've noticed people shaking hands again, which surprises me. I've settled on fist bumps now.
Yeah, I can do a fist or an elbow, your best too.
Exactly, yeah. It may be a while. But you see people hugging on the streets and stuff, and air kissing and stuff. You know, I mean, it is back. There is a level of not laissez-faire, but people aren't as terrified as they were before. Although there has been a change in attitude. A number of people, again, looking at comments on Facebook groups, people who used to go to a lot of gigs, who've not gone to one at all in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Some people have had a change of attitude and have actually thought, you start off thinking, oh my God, my lifestyle's changing here. I'm not allowed to go to gigs anymore. But after a long time, and it was much longer than we expected it to last. We thought 3 months, 6 months, all be over by Christmas, whatever. But, some people have changed. And I think a certain amount of people may just find, no, we used to do a lot of gigs. It's a previous part of my life. I've moved on now. I'm not going out as much. I think that'll be a minority. I think that people who like live music will continue to like live music. It's still a minority amount of people that do like live music. We know this. We talked about this in the past. Gigging is not for everybody. A lot of people say, no, I'd rather just listen to a record at home. But hey, the people that like the buzz, the energy, and the event side of going out, seeing people, actually seeing people in front of you, giving their time and showing their skills. It's a thing that a lot of people like and a lot of people want to get back to, and it is happening. So sooner I get to see the Spheres of the Dead, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
It's been good. Well, thanks, Chris. It's been really nice to see lots of shows and stuff. I was a bit unnerved when, like I say, Place Bloodstock, where those people got COVID. I found that a bit worrying. But then again, they were away for 3 days in an environment that's, probably some festivals aren't the cleanest place in the world, toilet-wise and stuff.
Also, look at the age demographic of the Bloodstock people. Now, back in the day when it was only the old people that were getting COVID, that was, and the young people, say old, young, relative terms, obviously, but the younger people felt invulnerable because none of them were getting it, and the older people were getting it and getting it badly. Things are changed now. The older people on the whole are hardly getting it at all, and if they are getting it, they're not getting it badly. The big growth in COVID now is in the younger people. So your Bloodstock crowd are more likely to catch COVID than certainly the HRH crowds and stuff like that, because that's where COVID's living now, in the 25 to 35, 40 bracket. That's the big increase. But the majority of those people catching it aren't having too bad a time, particularly if they've had a vaccination. Please, guys, have a vaccination. It's worthwhile.
People I've spoken to a few people who've had it recently, and they're double vaxxed, and it's just been like a bit of a mild cold, not been too bad at all.
Yeah, we mustn't rely on that, but nonetheless,
I'm hoping that becomes.
So, you see the figures. Oh, we had a festival and lots of people got COVID. Yeah, sure, but how ill were they? How many people actually died or got long COVID? It's not very many.
It's more of a case if they go home and give it to somebody who's vulnerable. That's the issue, isn't it?
That is absolutely still the issue.
Hasn't had the jabs. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the message. If people want the live music to come back, has to be, if possible, get double jabbed, because that's where the route home, isn't it?
It still is, and yes, one person in 100,000 or something has a very, very bad reaction, and that's tragic. But one person in 100,000 gets stung by a wasp and dies. I mean, you've got to look at comparative statistics here. Not everybody is happy to, but people who worry about putting a vaccine into their bodies don't worry about all the medicines that get pumped into them if they're in intensive care. I mean, it's
no, I mean, this is
a
it.
lot more shit gets put into your veins if you're in the ICU, mate. I can tell you than one vaccine. But hey, I'm not proselytizing here. It's a thing. It's people's decisions and stuff. But the government haven't yet come out with the idea of whether there will be actually an official COVID passport for nightclubs and things.
Wasn't there supposed to be in September? They were supposed to be bringing it in, weren't they?
Well, there's two viewpoints on this. It's because the French introduced a compulsory double vaccination and passport thing, and it increased the number of younger people who took the vaccine massively.
That's a good idea.
And basically, the government decided to try the same thing. So they leaked the idea that, come September, we're going to be having a vaccine passport. And it has actually worked in the UK too. It's something like 5 or 6 times the number of people in the age bracket they're looking for, which was 18 to 30 at that time, that club 1830. Basically, it worked. People were gone, oh, shit, I may as well have this vaccine because it'll be compulsory. So it has worked. So whether they actually will make it compulsory or not, I don't know. It might happen, it might not. But it has done the big thing. I mean, the big thing is we want to encourage people to get double vaxxed, and it is continuing to work.
Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think they should do it?
I don't like to speak for everybody else, and I don't like to speak to individuals because other individuals have their own individual circumstances. But for me, as my personal viewpoint is yes, I would be happier to go to any sort of crowded environment, pub, if I knew that everybody else was double vaxxed. So yes, I mean, my personal viewpoint is I'd be happier with it.
My preference would be double vaxxed and
a lateral flow.
Lateral flow, yeah, because that's the gold standard, isn't it?
It is the gold standard, but you don't need that to go to the pub. I suppose you do, but it's not realistic to expect that. It is realistic to expect it for a paid venue for a gig. I think for a gig,
I think it's probably acceptable, but. Like I say, it's a bit. We're working out what's going to happen with it all. Really, it's a very it's early days, and we're feeling our way back in, aren't we? Really,
we are.
Attendees of shows. I think we're all finding our way back into it, and it's been a bit of a, because I can empathise with both sides as usual. I can empathise with the people who want to get back to it, and I can also empathise with the people who are frightened and worried. So I can understand both perspectives.
Good for you. That's called balance, Matt.
Yeah, I know. They don't get a lot of it in government these days, do they? So,
yeah, you don't. Or certainly not on social media.
No, so I can see both sides of it, and I think there's arguments for both. And I think we'll probably have a clearer picture in 3 to 6 months' time. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do those gigs in April and then start to book, headline shows for the 4th album when that's done. So I'm hoping it's all going to happen. But one step at a time, I feel. And when's your next? So tell us about your upcoming gigs, Chris, please. Promote them.
Sure. Okay. Well, on the 19th of September, Sunday the 19th, we have the imaginatively titled "The Sunday in September," which is at the Bedford in Balham. Now. The Bedford in Balham is basically a pub venue. It's a separate room, but you do have to walk through the pub restaurant to get there. And we are not insisting on COVID vaccination and stuff. We're recommending it, but we're doing what the pubs and people do. We're asking people, please. We're not. You can't. We can't have a strict COVID policy if the pub doesn't. It just wouldn't work out.
Yeah, got you, mate. Yeah.
But again, this is not a tiny little crammed pub room. The Bedford in the Balham is a lovely music room. It's a big.
I've played there, yeah.
Theatre, of course you have. And it's a theatre type place, and it's going to be, sort of lower capacity. There's certainly not going to be heaving. And again, it's the slightly older bracket. So we will obviously have the general. Hand washing and the COVID concerns and stuff. So I'm not unhappy about that. I am very happy about the gig, which was original. I mean, this is a gig that's been put off and rescheduled, like so many of them have. I originally moved. I was going to have it in North London, but we moved it to the Bedford because of COVID. Insofar as it does allow a cabaret style. If you remember that time last year when gigs were allowed, if you sat down and ate.
Yeah.
So we could have done that, but anyway, fortunately, the figure's finished now, and we've got Abel Gans, the Scottish group, who are doing their. They've been around. They were a neo-prog band. In one form or other, they've been around since the 80s, and they have never ever played a gig in London. So this is the first time an actual.
I think it's somewhat unfair to say Abel Gans. I mean, they've always been, and they always get stapled with neo-prog. But actually, the latest stuff sounds more like Wilco or something. It's completely different.
Their last couple of albums, which really, like so many of those 80s, like Big Big Train, those 80s bands, IQ even to some extent, the last 5 years of stuff is a resurgence and almost acting like a new band. I mean, the fact that they do go back a long way, sort of irrelevant now. You can pick them up in 2015, and that to some extent that's their best works.
Well, I don't know if they're guy on slide guitar who was absolutely brilliant when I saw him, because I was never, Abel Gans was never a big thing. I was never into neo-prog, to be honest. I didn't even know it existed. I literally didn't know. I'd never heard of any of the bands apart from Marillion.
Marillion were the poster boys for neo-prog. It never really made it out of the subgenre category. I knew really now than it was at the time, I think.
I never really knew. I never knew about. I literally didn't know those 80s bands that existed, to be honest. But I was into thrash.
Most people in those days.
Oh yeah, and probably those guys never knew Carcass and Napalm Death were as well.
Well, exactly. There you go.
Not in that world, you don't know about it, but. Abel Gans, I saw at a festival, and I was completely shocked to hear this sort of old country stuff they had in their influences, and really interesting band. Really, they're much. They're not. They didn't have they weren't peddling neo-prog cliches. I thought they were really good. Really enjoyed it.
I don't think if you listen to the last couple of albums, the Abel Gans self-titled album from a couple of years ago, or The Life of the Honeybee, which was consistently top 5 of listeners' recommendations last year, The Life and Times of the Honeybee. People loved that. People are in, and you wouldn't ever classify them as neo-prog now. I mean, there's a little sample teaser trailer on Facebook of the lineup of Sunday in September. They're a progressive band. Not prog
pretty good when I saw
in the sense of stuff you wouldn't know. They're melodic. They're lovely. There's some lovely music.
Just that good tunes, yeah. I know. So, like I said, it's not. I dislike neo-prog. I genuinely don't know much about it, but I didn't think they had any of those weird cliches or anything. It sounded really, really interesting. So, who else you got as well as Abel Gans then?
Emerald Dawn. Now, the Emerald Dawn, based in St Ives in Cornwall, another band that's been around for a long time. They are really melodic, atmospheric, soaring stuff. More sort of traditional prog of the 70s sort of stuff with the guitars and the keyboards. And
really good guitar player, haven't they? Alan Holt's a good guitar, really good guitar player. Yeah, like say, not necessarily my sort of thing, but I thought the guitarist was fantastic.
They
Lord, I was.
They absolutely, very much so. And now they're doing a little tour at the moment. They played at Prog for Pert, and I've seen the recognition factor and the respect that these guys are getting.
Oh, good on
leap up in the last few months. It's been astonishing. Wherever they've played, and I think you're right. If you don't know anything about them, you go, oh, keyboards, guitars.
I thought they were very good when I saw them.
Really, you watch them, you listen. It's overwhelming, cinematic. It's gorgeous. The experience. Just get your head back and let this walk. They are stunning.
And
they also, their very first time playing a London gig, also at Sunday in September in the Balham on the 19th.
So we played them at HRH Prog. Me and the lads watched them from the side of the stage. Very impressed. Very, very impressed. Yeah. Like I say, we don't come from a prog background, but we can know when something's good.
Of course you
enjoyed it, and it's like,
you're massively multi-genre,
I love lots of different styles of music. I mean, I'm not anti-prog, I'm not anti-alt country, I'm not anti-grunge, I'm not anti any of it. I'm just, I haven't got the deep set roots in progland. But
more in metal, obviously. I get that. But on these multi-band events,
they're really good. They're really good when I see them.
We do try. We've done Prog the Forest a couple of years ago. We've got another Prog the Forest coming up in December. We do try and get a good spread of the subgenres or the different styles, if you don't like the word genres, of progressive music.
Yeah, it's a broad church, isn't it, mate? It's very.
It is.
I think that's the good
afternoon bands. I mean, we're opening the day with a half-hour acoustic set by Tom Slatter.
No, don't book him. He's trouble.
Yeah, I've run across this before. I mean, there's a guy with a guitar who sings about robots and death and.
Lovely man, yeah. I'm a big fan.
It's so many people are, and if you haven't found his Immoral Supporters Club on Facebook, then do join it. It's a good laugh, what a way to open the afternoon.
So what time's Tom? 12?
He's on at 1:00. Doors open at 12:30, and Tom takes things off at 1:00.
I'll try and pop down for that. Who else is on? Who else you got apart from Tom and the other two?
Following Tom, we've got Hats Off Gentlemen. It's adequate.
Know those guys? Yeah, nice people again.
You know them, but they are my partners in crime on Forest organisers, of course.
Yeah, very nice.
And also have played, as you know, it may or may not be the same set as yours, but they played HRH Prog. They just played at Prog for Pert the other day. They, I think, will be a two-piece. Occasionally, they have a three-piece with Malcolm's wife joining them on flute, but I think it's going to be the two-piece this time. And they also are terrific value for money. I mean, it's just the two of them. What a name! Hats Off Gentlemen. It's adequate. You start off thinking that's one of the oddest prog names you've ever come across, and you start to realise after a while that, hey, this works. I mean, that's a name that you remember. And when you see them, you remember terrific energy these guys have on stage. Terrific, and again, themes in their songs too. They're just a great band.
No, so who else you got as well?
Yeah, following on after Hats Off, we've got It. Have you played with It?
I haven't played with them. I know the guys, and sort of porcupine tree, sort of contemporary proggy sort of stuff, aren't they? Sort of very, very good at it.
I mean, I have to say that they are on the fringes of prog, really, aren't they? They're a rock band. They're very much rock energy and stuff. They've also been around a long time, but their most recent material is their best. Their lineup currently is excellent. In fact, Mark Gatland, their bass player, is also the bass player for Hats Off Gentlemen's Adequate. So Mark's got two sets on the chops to play. So he may be a bit tired at the end.
My mate said to me once, there's only about 30 prog musicians. They're all just in different bands. It's true, isn't it?
Well, at least I managed to put them together on their set. Yeah. It's a great. Their politics. They wear their politics on their sleeves.
Yeah. I mean, they're politically they're pretty on the ball, aren't they? So and
they are very much
good guys.
Do what they say. Songs like Revolution and their album We're All in It Together and stuff. Mm-hmm. But they're a rock band with progressive elements and stuff. But that's good. It's good heavy sort of sound.
Yeah, no, they're a good band.
And we still haven't mentioned yet The Gift. So closing the afternoon set is The Gift.
And who's in? Is The Gift lineup still the same? Because they've always changed.
It's evolved as bands do. Mike Norton continues to be the band leader. It's Mike's the main man of the band. The keyboards player has changed recently, and so they'll be introducing a new keyboards player at this gig. Mike's son is on drums and has been for a couple of years. But as I say, new keyboards player, a new album. I'm hoping. I have to check this with Mike, but I'm pretty sure that the album, this may well be an album launch gig. So, hey, we've got an album launch gig for The Gift. We've got first time London gigs with Emerald Dawn and Abel Gans. I mean, hey, it's
lots to forward to. So, is that the full lineup, Chris?
Yeah, that's it. There's 4 bands in the afternoon and 2 in the evening sets, and there's a break in the afternoon to none of this business with HRH having to miss a band while you go and eat something. So we actually have an afternoon break.
I'm thinking of popping down so I don't have to, so I can do the old
Emerald Dawn and April Gans? Or?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to discuss what the family arrangements are that day, but I'd like to come down just to sort of feel my way into coming to gigs. I've not been to a gig since that show we did at the Islington.
It would be an absolute pleasure to see you, mate. I will try and avoid the French kissing and stuff. Just a little peck on the cheek, please, do.
Yeah, okay. I love the usual arrangement. And just as well, I've got. So the what's the other gig you've got coming up in December?
Prog the Forest in December. This is we used to have it in July, but we've moved it to December for a couple of reasons. One of which is because Prog for Pert is also a charity prog event, and they have to have it in July because of their football fixtures, because they use a football ground stadium, and not a stadium, but a social event. So Prog the Forest now is going to be in early December at the Fiddler's Elbow in Camden.
What's the lineup for that one then, Chris?
The lineup, did you say?
The lineup for them, mate.
We've got the Far Meadow, who are probably one of the biggest of that area on the prog bands these days.
Yeah, I've seen them. They're good.
Fantastic draw. Hopefully, Emperor Norton, who are a young, punchy, I wouldn't say quite prog metal, but they're certainly an energetic band.
I don't know them, but I've heard the name.
Hats off, gentlemen, Metallica, to playing again, because, as I say, Malcolm and Mark are co-trustees of this.
Yeah, I've only spoken to them social. They seem like really nice guys. They do.
They are incredibly nice guys, and if you come to the Sunday in September, I'll be sure to hook you up.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Together. Warm Rain from Brighton, who are lovely guys. They again played recently. They haven't played that many gigs live, but wherever they've gone, any promoter's going to say they get fantastic response, but really they do. If you look at any sort of Facebook comments or something, you'll see people really saying, "Hey, I hadn't heard much by this band, but I saw them and was knocked out by it." It's fantastic. Oh, and here's an interesting one. John Etheridge from Soft Machine.
Oh, we've played with Soft Machine. He's a great guitar player, one of the very best.
One of the very best is true. I would say he's one of the top 6 guitar players, British guitar players.
He's a McLaughlin, Alan Holdsworth sort of level player, isn't he?
Absolutely. He did actually take over from Alan Holdsworth in Soft Machine.
I remember, Bundles era, didn't he, after the Bundles?
Exactly. You say you remember. I don't believe you remember, but you certainly worked back.
I've read all the books. Yeah, I mean, I can remember. I wasn't there at the time, but
it's virtually the same lineup in Soft Machine now as Bundles in 1975, I think it was.
We played with them a New Day, and they were absolutely brilliant.
And John is a fantastic, and he's not doing a long set. He's just doing a sort of half hour, 45 minutes, bit of music, bit of chat. But we're very, very lucky to have John. And bear in mind, this is a charity gig. All of the musicians here are donating their services for free, and it's in aid of the World Land Trust, who buy up acres and acres of the rainforest in order to stop people developing it, basically. So it's well worth. Oh, and I have just today had confirmation of another. We were going to have Iron the Manic Whale, who sadly had to withdraw because they weren't available for the December date. They were booked for the original July. We have an exciting replacement that I can't tell you about yet for contractual reasons, but it'll be announced in a couple of weeks' time, and this will be a good one as well. So that's on Sunday, not Saturday this year. It's on a Sunday as well. Sunday, the 5th of December at the Fiddler's Elbow in Camden.
Well, it sounds like a great lineup, mate. So, and where do we go to find out about those 2 shows? Is it the Facebook group?
Yeah, Facebook's the place to find out about anything, as you know. If you Google the Prog the Forest or Google the Sunday in September, or ideally just join the London Prog Gigs Facebook group. That's where you find out about the London Prog Gigs groups, the ones that I put on, which is, as I say, I'm not a promoter. I just do the odd thing here and there.
Quick to get out of that one.
But what I do is publicise as much live music as possible in London, and that means putting. So you want to know what's on in the prog related area. in London and London area, then the London Prog Gigs group is the one to be on. That's where you find out everything. So join that on Facebook. If you don't do Facebook, I dabble a little bit on Instagram. I'm not great with Instagram. Sorry. Somebody wants to do my Instagram for me, then feel free. Facebook is pretty much where the older prog lives. Mm-hmm. Not so much prog metal, I'm aware of that, but you want to follow, and metal, of course, is a different thing altogether. But I do, as I say, cover all prog related stuff, including the prog metal stuff on the group. So that's where to stay in touch with us.
I mean, you have all the post rock stuff in there as well, don't you? Know that, a lot of that sort of thing. So it's not all it's not all trad prog we use. And Chris,
certainly it's not. I mean, I'm a big believer that the progressive umbrella covers a wide range of music, and like Jerry Ewing, I absolutely think that post rock is a prog or progressive subgenre under the same sort of area. It is odd that you do get people who, I mean, some of the biggest draws of the younger bands don't even know that it's prog, if you know what I mean. It's you get people who will go to see bands like Pliny or somebody like that who don't realise that they're at a prog gig. In my opinion, and I think it's a shame. It's a shame that the generations don't mix more than they do.
Well, apparently Jerry was telling me that a lot in other countries they do. It's very much a British thing where. The people are in Steve. There's the way I see it. There's a few different sort of subsections, and we've played a lot of it. We've done traditional prog gigs. We've done all the psychedelic shows. We've done the post rock, the Art Tangent Festival. We've done that, and stoner rock festivals. We've done, and it seems to be different faces.
All prog, in my opinion. Stoner, art rock, desert rock.
We've played all of them. We've done Art Tangent. We've done. The post-rocky stuff we've done, Evil Blizzard, we've done the psychedelic festival stuff, we've done Monkey 3 and Hawkwind and all that stuff, and also we've played Summer's End and the real trad prog stuff as well. So
you're real genre tarts, aren't you guys? You'll go anywhere.
We'll go wherever everyone wants us, but that's what we had to do. I mean, we didn't have a choice.
Which audience is the best, Matt, from your point of view? Is there a nice best is the wrong word, but I mean, is there any particular
prog crowds are very good listeners, but not very good dancers. Prog fans are very, very good listeners, very good, most intensely listening audience. Are brilliant, but not so keen on dancing. Psychedelic crowds are brilliant for dancing, but like we did, we played Freak Valley with like Corrosion of Conformity in the metal crowds, and they're all sort of fists in the air, and they're great. They're all good. We never really had problems with audiences. The problem with us is getting in front of the audiences and getting people trying to explain what we do, because people don't really get it, because they think, well, it's going to be some sort of noise thing, or it's going to be some sort of widdly prog thing. It's just like, well, we don't do that. We don't. There's hardly any guitar solos, and there's it's all about songs, but just without any singing. And it's quite hard to explain what we do without people hearing it. So the issue for us has never been. Once we're there, we're fine. You know what I mean?
This is where festivals win out, though, isn't it?
Yeah, because, definitely.
You're there for the day. You'll at least check out every band that comes on, whether you know about them or not. And you can, as a punter, you can find out stuff that you might not have realised you'd have got. And as a band player, you will get a bigger audience than one that will necessarily go and see you play. Certainly, in terms of the amount of punters that you can get at a prog gig, as opposed to maybe prog metal or something, which even before COVID was very, very disappointing in London. I mean, I would go to bands and there'd be less than half a dozen paying customers there. You can't exist like that. I wonder if the future is going to be, at least for sort of the traditional or the prog bands, is going to be a mixture of festivals and house concerts. I mean, house concerts are growing. You've done a Prisoner Dead house concert, I think. With
our friends Beth and Jeff. We did their one.
Exactly.
Great. It was brilliant. It was time. It was great. And I've done one with
a house concert. You've got people who want to go and see you, who are willing to pay a reasonable whack of money, so you're able to make it pay financially for you. probably what, 20 people tops at a house concert.
Yeah, 20 to 30. I think Jeff is definitely 30 people, I think. Yeah. And then 30 people come. And then they pay all but a ticket, and they really looked after us, but they're just lovely people. But I think, like me and Andy Tillotson do a thing where we do this sort of improvised music thing, but it's quite tuneful. So we might do a load of those as house concerts as well. So, I think the house concert thing, I really enjoyed that. Two of the best gigs I've ever had at our friend's house. And they were lovely. And I enjoyed those immensely because you can do more esoteric music, but to a very appreciative audience. And I really enjoyed it.
Right. And this is an audience, and again, particularly on the sort of prog genre, and some of the sort of guys and people into the 70s stuff are starting to knock on a bit. And maybe just don't feel like going out and taking an hour to get to a London venue and stand and stuff, whether COVID or no COVID. There's still the travelling, there's still the money, there's still the expensive beer, all of that sort of stuff. I wonder if, at some point, it's going to be house concerts in the progressive genres are going to be house concerts, and people are going to stop trying to book the Black Heart or the Boston Music Room or something and have 20 people turn up there. It's just not working for anybody. It doesn't work for the venues. They need to cover their own costs. If you haven't got a decent crowd, they're not selling enough beer.
Do you think that I think, like Rosfest in the States, where it's like 800 people in a sit-down theatre and you have bands all day for 3 days, I think that would go down well. If someone organised a British version of that, I think it'd do really in a posh theatre, King's Place or something.
What's the German one? Night of the Prog or something, is it? Or
well, the Rosfest is indoors. But it's posh. And it's nice, and you have a nice seat, and it's like you got a nice place to sit down all day. And I think, I think something like that, an equivalent of that in this country, sort of venue like King's Place or some sort of posh theatre, like a posh regional sit there. Because how long are that audience going to want to stand up? Especially like Summer's End, the festival like that. How long was that audience going to want to be on its feet for 3 days, stood up? For
You're going to have a gig yourself in King's Place, are you not? Or is that a secret?
One of the things we talked about, doing those sort of, rather than doing the Black Heart again, finding a nice theatre with 200 capacity theatre and doing something nice there. I think that'd work. I think that'd be a good.
Is that the one that Big Train did their first live concert in?
They had the bigger room though. There's two rooms. Okay. There's one that's the room they had's 400 capacity. This one's 200 capacity. So we could probably do it. We could probably set it out. And then do like one show there, and that way we could have all the projections and all the things we want to do in terms of staging. And then I quite like the idea of doing it in a more civilized theatre type environment rather than. You
are talking about just one gig as opposed to a 3-day festival, and I think there are pros and cons. I think that certainly the middle-aged friendly places, the Stables in Bedford, in Milton Keynes, that's probably a venue you've been to. That's the most middle-aged friendly venue you've ever been to. It's run by volunteers, but it's a very professional place.
Yeah,
lovely sound, seated bar. You drive. Say you drive there. You have to drive there because the public transport bloody awful. It's in the middle of a field. Yeah, it's a very middle-aged friendly place. But for every person you get who likes that sort of go along, sit down, listen, pay attention, there is an aspect of standing around, meeting people, a bit of energy. I mean, you lose something if you're not standing at music.
I mean, I like standing gigs myself, and that's my thing. I like standing gigs, and I'm fine with it. What I'm not fine with is standing up. I mean, I'm okay to stand up for an evening, but sometimes it depends how injured I am that week. But
you have to stand up while you're playing, of course. I mean, you've got to get through the whole set.
Someone said to me the other day that it was an ego thing for bands to want to play in front of audiences who are stood up, and I was like, I think that misses the point that there's a sort of shared experience when you're stood in a room in front of the band. that's pretty magical. You know what I mean? Like there's a shared sort of feeling there. You know what I mean?
There's a different energy for people standing.
When we played sit-down gigs, it's a lot harder work as a player. As a player, you want people stood up because then you get that feedback look of energy between you and the audience, right? But definitely what you want as a player is it's not an ego thing. It's that you can just feel people seem to be more moving around and stuff. You know what I mean? It's a mutual thing between you and the audience.
So you do get, obviously, the venues like the Shepherd's Bush Empire will be for HRH Prog in a few days' time, or even maybe the Islington Assembly Hall, where they have got standing downstairs but seated upstairs. Is that the sort of compromise that works for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I'm always just conscious of, disability access as well and making sure everyone can get into venues and stuff. That's something I've really started to think about lately as well, because I never thought of it before.
No, it's funny, isn't it? My daughter-in-law's disabled, not disabled, what do you say? Mobility restricted. And, it drags, it makes you think about stuff that you should have thought about before. But, when you do
think about it. But I never thought of it before. I never thought about it until, recently. I've got a lot of mates who, wheelchair users and stuff. And, it makes me think about how can we best present the band so they can enjoy it as well. Because, zero blocks to access is what you want in the end, ultimately, isn't it? So
I did go to an all-seated 3-day event a few years ago. And although it was delightful, there was a bit of a lack of
the energy, isn't it? There's an lack of
everybody has their chair, and nobody don't like it if people trying to change the chair in between acts. And
one of the things that HRH Prog was down the front, there was a row of chairs just in front of the where the bands played, and there was like a war for those chairs. People were very angry if they couldn't get the chairs, and I was. I was watching the bouncers having to deal with the multiple arguments with audience members who are desperately trying to fight for their chair.
I get that.
Sure to fight over a chair.
I went on Cruise to the Edge years ago, and there were people who particularly liked Cruise to the Edge. It's a cruise,
I've not been, but I've had mates.
One of these famous things where you get lots and lots of bands and you're on a ship, and they sounds probably awful if you're anti-cruise and you don't like the idea, but really they work terrifically well. And Cruise to the Edge,
I've heard good things.
An example of it. But you do get people who like a particular band, and they'll go and sit in the front chair or position or wherever, depending which stage they're at, particularly if you're on the deck where there's no actual sort of chairs as such. And they'll go and sit and they'll wait there 45 minutes or so before the band come on, so they've got a nice place to sit. And a load of people drift in when the band starts and stand in front of them. And I did see a fight at one point. Because, on the one hand, no, it's not. There isn't allocated seating, but on the other hand, it is rude to people who are fans and have gone there early.
They paid quite a few quid for a ticket.
And I say this as a tall guy who is always careful about standing in front of the stage, because people will throw bottles at my head, frankly, or at least if they're not actually doing it, they want to, and you can feel that in the way they look at you. So I'm a stand at the back and the side sort of guy, to try not to inconvenience anybody. But I like to have a sit down as well. So getting the balance is what it's all about, I think.
Do you remember there was a British prog cruise once? It was like Pendragon on a ferry or something, wasn't it?
It was a ferry, wasn't it? Did Jerry Ewing organise it? It was a prog magazine.
Can't remember.
Thing. Yeah, I remember. Oh, I just want to give a mention to Andy Hall. Did you know Andy Hall?
Yeah. So just before, I was going to mention Andy before we finish. So if you can't mention the London progressive music scene without Andy. So Andy was a very good mate of mine. I used to, every time I'd go to a prog gig, most of the time he was the person I'd hang around with and just, have a good laugh with. And I think he was a friend to virtually everybody in that scene, weren't he?
Absolutely. If you didn't know Andy, that's a shame, but many, many people would do. He was very, very visible at prog gigs. He did actually ease off from the prog and get very much into his Marvel and superhero universe type.
He was a fan, wasn't he? He was just into loads of stuff, wasn't he?
He was a guy into loads and loads of stuff. He was also he was my co-admin on the London Prog Gigs right from the very beginning. He's one of the first guys that I met when I got back into prog, and he was I thought of it when you were mentioning the cruise, because I remember he was.
He did it, didn't he?
He was either there or he didn't manage to. I think that cruise suffered, that ferry cruise. There was a really bad snowfall. I think the country had ground to a halt, and a lot of people couldn't get up there for the leave of it or something.
I can't remember what happened, but we haven't really got the weather for it here, have we?
It really didn't work out quite so well. Now that's the problem, of course, and that's the difficulty with the cruise, is that anybody in England wanting to go to the US one has to fly over the other states. It does make it expensive, so and that's not very egalitarian. But if you can fit a holiday around it or something, it is a thing I would recommend everybody that can.
I'd love to go and play. I'd love to go and play. It's one of the things I'd love to do. But yeah. Remember, let's say Andy was. I think he was somebody who was a massive part of this scene. I mean, every gig I seemed to go to, he was always there.
Absolutely.
Through the lockdown, I used to do some Zooms with him and hang out with him and a few other mates as well. And he was just one of those guys who was always just a really funny dude, really good person.
He really was. Great sense of humour, absolutely, and he's so knowledgeable too. He just knew everything. But I'm considering taking a collection of all the selfies he had with every band member and every Marvel TV actor and something like that. It would go on. There'd be a book's worth of them.
I went to see Stephen Wilson with him, and I'm going home. I'm tired. I'm going to the after show. I was like, no, I'm too tired. And I saw him the next day, and he had a photo taken with everybody.
Yeah,
so, everyone loved him. But I think he's just one of those guys. He was just a nice man, and everyone loved him. And I hope his mum knows that everyone loved him. Everyone, no one ever said, "Oh, I didn't like Andy Hull." Everyone loved Andy. He was just a nice man.
Very much. I tell you, the outpourings of affection for Andy on Facebook, all over Facebook, not just one person plugging it away, but wherever you saw every sort of prog group or individual people or something, there was a week went by that Andy was there. No, that was a real loss. And that's also been a week when there have been some major US and international music stars have died as well. Charlie Watts, for example. But to have that much recognition and grief and affection shown for an ordinary guy, not a musician, not a professional, not an actor or something, was pretty impressive, and it's a testament. I do hope that his mother knows, as how well loved he was.
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I want to go to the funeral because like I said, I just want his mum to know that he was very well liked and he had a lot of friends. And but like I said, I mean, the amount of time. Every time I go to a gig, he was always the person I used to hang out with, just because I could hide at the back of the room with him, really. We'd go and see lots of bands. But, I'm kind of... It doesn't seem real what happened, that he's gone. And, we were very lucky to have him in our circle of friends. Very lucky to be able to go to the gigs with him. Once again, as usual, you don't appreciate it till he's gone, do you? So...
I think that's so much the case, isn't it? It's you don't know what you got till it's gone. It's and again, seize the day, treat each day. It's not difficult. People keep saying it, but we all know this. Live each day. And as we are coming out of COVID, perhaps it's important to remember that as well. As I say, a year cooped up or whatever you've been doing affects different people in different ways, and it can do there's an opportunity for change in contemplation and reflection in how you live your life and what things mean to you and stuff. It can go a number of ways, but anyway, as I say, COVID aside, there's ups, there's downs to it. We are not at the end of the story by any means. I mean, today's headline here, falling cases ease fears of new wave as schools return. That's positive. On the other hand, it also points out that in Scotland, infections have surged 2 weeks after pupils have gone back to school. So, every day there's a bit of good news, a bit of bad news.
Yeah, I think that's my feeling too. Like, some days it feels like, oh, it's getting better now. So what my attitude is cautiously optimistic that things are gradually getting better. And like you say, I've been out. I went to central London this week for the first time. I went to, I've started to go out a little bit more and started to.
How did you travel, Matt? Did you take a train or did you drive in?
I actually got a cabin because I have to be very careful at the moment, but it was fine, and I get the train every day, to go into the work and stuff. So, I'm out. I'm not sitting at home.
Is that the tube you're getting, or
I'll get the overland, and the overland's quiet, to be honest, because people aren't working. So, most people are at home. So, we've got 2 rehearsals next week. So that's everything. I think once we start rehearsing, once the first gig's out of the way, we'll be all right. I have to say we did have a jam with 3 of us in the room, and it sounded like absolute poop. So,
who wasn't there?
Steve. So just
there you go.
He's probably he's the most together person in the band, probably. But to be honest, because he's so on the ball with the playing. But the rest of us, it's been a long time. We got to remember we were rehearsing for 9 years. And most bands they get together and go and do a tour, right? That's the way it works. I was talking to a few of my mates. I was talking to John Mitchell about this the other day, and he said what they do is they do a few rehearsals and they do a load of gigs, right? We don't do that. We rehearse once a week. We did it for 9 years. So that's how, and like people said to us, you got really good. It sounds like you just jam all the time. I was like, yeah, I've been rehearsing for 9 years. I didn't know that wasn't what you're supposed to. That's what I thought. That's what you were supposed to do. I thought you were just practicing. So we started practicing in 2011 and finished practicing in 2020. So
you nailed it by that time.
Not really, no. But and we gradually got better. I think playing with other bands, when we played with Knife World and we played with, we playing the big festivals and stuff, we had to get better and better. And we've actually got really tight towards the end. But getting into playing again now, it just feels like, well, how do you do this?
But Matt, you're on this side of the wall, right? As soon as you move onto that side of the wall, it will change very, very quickly for you. It's like having not been on the train for a long time. I didn't use the underground for a year and a half. I thought I'm not going to use a train.
Are you on the train now?
On it since then, and actually now, it feels okay. Most people are wearing masks. It's not as crowded as it used to be. The doors are open all the time. It's well ventilated.
It's weirdly nicer, isn't it? I went to Southend the other day on the train with my family, and it was fine, absolutely fine, no problem.
Exactly.
And I think there's a case of you do Southend, you do the seaside, then you do the central London, and then you do I met a couple of friends in at the local pub. And we would, we had our own table and it was quiet. And then you do a pub, then you can do a pub where you can do a gig, and it's all right. And then you can go, it's going to be a gradual process because emotionally it was traumatic, wasn't it? It was traumatic having all these things. Yeah,
I know. I think a lot of people are traumatized. Absolutely.
Well, I'll be honest. I live for gigs, playing live, and when gigs are where I saw my friends. I'd see yourself or Andy Hall or Chris McGarrell or. Joe Kendall, people I consider my mates, in London mates, the only place I'd really see them was at gigs. You know what I mean? And that's my social life was going to gigs.
Yeah, no, I get that. But what a great social life it is, though.
It's great. Yeah, Mark Buckingham and Gary and loads of my other mates. Loads of people who.
That's right. There's loads of people I know in the same way. You see people at gigs, you chat, you've got stuff in common, all sorts of stuff. I don't go out for dinner generally, unless it's before a gig or something. I don't know these people's houses. It's a social. That's why it works. It's why it's such a good fun. It's why I really hope it comes back for everybody. That
was the thing with prog gigs. It was kind of like when I was a kid, there used to be a local pub, right? Me and my mates used to meet up at. Now a lot of those people, I wouldn't even know their surname, right? I wouldn't know where I didn't know a lot about them. But they were people I mates. Go for a pint. Yeah, right, mate. Yeah. Talk about Black Sabbath. Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Right, and there weren't people I was close to, but people I knew pretty well to go for a pint with. I liked, people I consider friends. But and the prog gigs became that for me in London. They became my my local, like having a mobile local pub, really, where I'd go and just hang out with people at these gigs. And to have that disappear was a bit of a shock, to be honest. It was a bit of a.
Well, I had a similar experience. I mean, I used to put on gigs when I was at uni. I put on Hawkwind when I was at uni.
Oh, awesome, man.
They were 10 years old as a band by that time, and some people were slugging me off for putting on this old rubbish. And, I really...
40 years later.
40 years later, yeah, absolutely. Amazing. But, when I was at uni putting on gigs, I would walk around, know loads of people, obviously. And even in the local area and stuff, I could go to other gigs, other colleges and stuff, and see people I knew. And then, hey, I had a career, I had marriage, I had kids and stuff. And if I went to see a gig, I know the person I went with, I would almost never see anybody that I knew at a gig. And in the last few years, it's that old experience for me again. I go to a gig, it's, hi, how are you doing? I know a lot of people. There's a big social aspect.
Nice, isn't it?
It's nice.
I like it. I really like. That's the bit I miss most, more than the music, more than any of it. What I missed was seeing people and just being able to have that. All right, mate, how you doing? You know what I mean?
That's what it's about. That's almost the best bit. It's certainly up there anyway. I mean,
especially like when I went to Summer's End and stuff like that. It was like it'd be the curries and the hanging out and the drinking and the funny stories and the funny moments and all that stuff. It was great. Yeah.
There you go. This is life. These are the best days. And to have those days pulled out from us,
it was a shock, wasn't it? So I think. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a gradual. I mean, like I say, I am slightly nervous about it. I was nervous about going on the train. I was nervous about going to the shops. I was nervous. You know what I mean? These are all things.
And each one is ticked off, isn't it?
And I think hopefully by next April, and if the numbers continue to be okay for people who are double vaccinated, I think we'll hit another stage in next April where we go, you know what, we're back. And I think
so. We can't predict what's going to happen with COVID, but just at the moment, and my wife went into a shop the other day and forgot to put a mask on. And I said, you haven't put a mask on. Oh, my God, I forgot. And she's very, very cautious on that sort of stuff. So, it is getting through.
I think we're gradually... But I'm still very conscious to wash my hands and wear my mask and use me gels and that to make sure I'm following.
Funnily enough, I was using hand gel before COVID because of catching other sorts of stuff, stuff on public transport. So
every time we went and played a festival, I used to get sick anyway. So, when we played, I came back from Rosfest and I was really ill for 3 weeks afterwards. So,
when your kids come back from the first term in the autumn term, you get a cold. We always have done. You know, this is not new. It's not stuff that we used to be scared of.
One of the weird things is the last year I've not had a cold for 18 months. I mean, we've got a 9-year-old here, and he comes home from school and he's not had a cold either. Normally we've got cold.
There's a downside to this. There's a syndrome that's been discovered in Australia where babies are being born or having complete autoimmune deficiency. Because of lockdowns and stuff, they're not experiencing any bad stuff at all. And they say give your baby a spoonful of dirt every day. Well, I mean, that's obviously going too far, but you can raise kids in too much hygiene. And if you try and get rid of everything, you end up just needing to live in a bubble your entire life because anything will kill you. I mean, this is the bad side about New Zealand. It's great that they're very great about keeping COVID out of the country, but they're there and nobody can go in or out. How long are you going to be like that?
At some point, surely they've got to open up. They can't just carry on.
At some point, they'll have to open up. But of course, because they're in their bubble, they're not as motivated to get the vaccinations done as we are over in Europe. Because they're not, and as a result, they've still only got 5-10% vaccination. So, they're way behind everybody. We're getting maybe more blasé than we should be in the UK. But, hey, we are definitely heading, and I'm not going to say herd immunity. Oh, damn, I just said herd immunity. But, sooner or later, it's going to be out there.
You have to live with COVID, aren't we? It's a background disease, aren't we? Yeah.
You got it. That's how it is. And that means, basically that means gigs. 67 of them in September, but hopefully do come if you can do to in September.
Is it how many international acts are on that list?
Well, international, if you mean outside of England, I would say 1.5, because Scotland obviously is not in England, so that makes Evelgans international.
How many? How many apart?
And the Emerald Dawn come from Cornwall, which is arguably not England.
Many Cornish people would argue it's not, is it?
I think it's under awesome.
So just to...
But I hear what you say. In terms of September, no, you're right. International, that's few of them.
Now, what effect will this have on the UK music scene in terms of gigs then? So are people... Is it going to be British bands touring? Because my thing now is, in terms of what we're doing, I think probably for the next 18 months, 2 years, we're going to be touring the UK, aren't we? We're probably not going to struggle to play outside of the UK, aren't we?
Brexit might be more of a problem than COVID, I think, for you on that. And I know. But even so, even in the last year we've spoken, that's moved on a bit as well. And the restrictions have eased, not completely, but it has got as, I wouldn't say better, but it's not as bad as it was a few months ago. So no, I don't think so. International, the September gigs I keep talking about, 67 in September in London, almost all, with the American ones are still disappearing one after a time. I mean, I think they've all gone now. European, we've got Frank Carducci is playing at HRH Prog on Saturday, maybe Sunday.
Did he come in and do 10 days? And then
well, he and the band have done lateral flow tests, all the official ones. I think today, if their results are negative, they're allowed in, and I don't think they have to quarantine. I think that's their current thing if they got positive tests. So hopefully we'll see Frank Carducci from France or Switzerland or Geneva. I've forgotten offhand where he's from now. But he's relatively rare. Many of the Europeans have pulled out of travelling, at least to the UK, but more so because of COVID and isolation and quarantine requirements. All the American ones have been pulled out, are all being rebooked for sort of next March, April, May. Big concerts being announced sort of day after day. Dream Theatre have just been announced for March. April, was it? Yeah.
So the other thing is a lot of times bands have to pull out at short notice as well, don't they? That's the other issue.
Well, that can happen. And of course, the bigger the band, the more difficult it is to come out at short notice. If you're an international band organising a whole EU tour and you have to pull out, that's a huge deal. If you are, a UK band, it's obviously so. What you're saying is there a boost for UK bands and UK gigs?
Yeah. Could there be a? I'm trying to find a positive, Chris.
Well, yeah, I think this a lot of gigs in September. The October list for London, and again, just London, just prog related, none of the other stuff. The amount of entertainment that there was in London is stunning. Always has been, of course. That's why it's London. But a lot of the pressure on venues. I mean, it was quite difficult for us to find a replacement date for Prog the Forest when we had to move it from July.
This is the thing,
very, very booked up.
It's very hard to book stuff now because we're looking to if our new album comes out in sort of September next year, we're going to have to book something fairly soon to get something a year ahead. Yeah. Before we were booking venues 2 or 3 months ahead. You know what I mean?
Crazy the length of time, the planning horizon now. Back in the day, I remember I saw Pink Floyd play The Wall at Earl's Court in 1981, and I wrote off for a ticket by post about 6 weeks before the gig. Send a letter and a postal order or something like that because it was announced. Really, these days, you're going to get a gig like that. It's going to be announced at least a year ahead.
Between you and me, we just booked our first 2023 festival.
Hey, don't worry, I won't tell anybody else. You didn't hear that here.
Didn't hear it on the YouTube channel, no. But 2023 festival, we've just booked our first one, and we could have booked more if we would. We're turning them down. Most things we turn down because the guys are, Stu's in Devon, in Dorset, so not Devon, And we're all just so busy working and doing other stuff. We just can't commit to them. And you know,
you're in Devon. I didn't realise that.
Dorset. He's in Dorset. So
Dorset. Right.
So
Even so, that's not exactly next door, is it?
We can't commit to a lot of stuff.
You guys are very much on the circuit. I mean, I think, you know, when people are looking for a support act, particularly if you're an overseas band coming to the UK and you're looking for a local band that has some local to support because you don't know quite how well you're going to do, you're right up there on what promoters are thinking.
Safety net.
So basically, you're you know, and it's a nice position for you to be in.
Yeah, it's nice to be asked. It's great. We get offered a lot more than we can do, just because, like I say, it's not that we don't want to do them. It's just we're all over the place in terms of family commitments, and for people who've got a lot going on in their lives, trying to pull it all together, which is that makes the ones we do really special for us, though. Yeah.
You know, the first time I saw you guys was supporting Crippled Black Phoenix, and although years ago now, but I remember I was aware. I think you and I possibly had met recently at the Big Train concert, actually.
Yeah,
but I was familiar with your band, but that's the first time I saw you. And being a support act doesn't always help you break through to be a headliner.
No.
And I'm often telling overseas bands this, because they say, "Can you get me a gig in London?" And I go, "Well, you know, yes, but will anybody go to it?" They say, "Yeah, well, we supported this band and we supported that band and we supported another band." But it doesn't always, as I say, just because somebody saw you as a support doesn't make them want to go and see you as a headliner. It does sometimes, and you know, we were saying before, when people see you at a festival, that does.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
But it's not by any means a given, if you know what I mean.
But I think we just did so many. We picked up a few people at each one. We just did loads. We did, you know, like Phoenix and
the old-fashioned way. Keep playing and build yourself up.
Two or three people each one. Literally 2 or 3 people each one. It gradually got to the point where we could sell out 160 people. Headlining, but it took that took 8 years.
Well, there you go.
Right, okay, Chris, we'll finish up there. Thanks so much, mate. It's always lovely to see you. I shall press. All right, thanks so much. I'm going to press end.
Okay, all the best to you, Matt.